basically. So the idea is that it will prevent and deter illegal migration. And the problem that the government has got is that a bill, even if it's on goat hide, does not stop anybody from coming to the UK. You can't stretch it really thinly across the channel to prevent people from entering. It doesn't prevent anything from happening by itself. It's just a piece of paper. It could conceivably deter people from coming, but it depends on the decision-making of tens of thousands of individuals whose lives are a mystery even to dedicated researchers, people like me who've worked with refugees for a long time, never mind to the kind of people who are coming up with these plans in dark rooms in Westminster or whatever. So is it going to achieve that kind of object of deterrence? I don't know, but I suspect not, because the two ways that it hopes to deter people is essentially by refusing them access to the asylum system. Now, I don't think that fully encapsulates quite how drastic this bill is. Essentially, it scraps the UK's asylum system. There'll be no more asylum decisions at all being made, apart from for perhaps a tiny number of refugees who manage to enter lawfully and then apply for asylum once they're here without deceiving the authorities. That does happen occasionally, but it's very, very few people. So generally speaking, essentially this is closing down the UK asylum system. And the idea is that that will then prevent people from getting any kind of status. So they will, the bill literally prohibits the government from granting status of any kind or citizenship to their children, even, remarkably, in future. So it legally prevents that from happening. And the idea is that you will never get a decision on your asylum claim because it will never be considered, and also you'll be banned from getting status either if you stay in the country or if you leave and come back or anything like that. You can never get lawful status in the UK. And also it imposes a duty on the Secretary of State to remove you. Now, imposing a duty on somebody to do something is one thing. Them actually doing it is potentially quite different. And the problem that the government has is that you cannot remove people back to their home country if they're a genuine refugee. And you can't start sending Afghans back to Afghanistan. You can't start sending Eritreans back to Eritrea. And as cynical as I am about some things that this government does, I don't think the government is going to try and start doing that. And in fact, I know that they're not going to try and start doing that because they say they won't in this bill. This bill actually prevents them from removing you back to your home country. It says you cannot be removed back to your home country if you come from almost any country in the world that's not Europe, basically, or Albania, which is remarkable. So it says that you can't be removed back to your home country, but you can be removed to a safe third country. It's just that there is no safe third country to remove people to. Now, obviously, there's all the attention that we've seen attached to the Rwanda scheme, and the government seems to hope that at some point in future it will be able to send people to Rwanda. Suella Braverman has talked about her dreams of flights for Rwanda taking off and so on. But according to some briefing the Times had a couple of days ago, the earliest the government hopes that's going to happen is December 2023, perhaps March 2024, assuming that they win the legal challenge. So I'm going to sort of assume for a moment that they do win the legal challenge and the government is going to be able to remove people to Rwanda. If this sort of twin track approach of saying we're going to remove you, perhaps, and you'll never get status here, if that deters people from coming, then there's no problem for the government because there won't be any people to remove. If it doesn't deter people from coming, if people continue to arrive in the sorts of numbers that we've seen previously, 89,000 applications over the last year, then the government is going to have literally tens of thousands of people, most of whom are refugees, to remove to safe third countries like Rwanda, or if they reach a deal with some other country, to those other countries as well. I don't know if you can imagine how hard that will be for the government to do, how brutal it will be, how violent it will be. I think if we're talking about enforced removals, I think it's a mistake not to realise that that is coercion and that it's going to be violent, that people will struggle against it, and that people struggle against it even if they're being removed back to their home country, a country that they know very well, even after they've had their asylum claim decided and refused. The idea that people who are going to be removed to a completely different country on a different continent, people coming from Afghanistan being removed to Rwanda and so on, the idea that they will go quietly, peacefully, is just not true. There will be resistance to removal. So